Hey friends, in my last video I calculated how much water there is in a full bucket in Minecraft, but the comments in that video made a lot of good points, so I wanted to revisit it. In part 1, I went over all the math and measurements that make up this formula that represents the volume of a source block that's expanded as much as possible in all directions, which I then used to calculate that the weight of the source block should be around 2 quadrillion kilograms. This video will probably be shorter since the formula is already almost done, but there will be some much bigger numbers. First, some minor corrections though. A bunch of people mentioned that when I was filling my inventory with buckets, I didn't use the offhand, so this 36 should be 37. And you're right, that's on me. Next, a few people mentioned that the gravity in Minecraft is stronger than on Earth, and that it should make the answer bigger. And they're also mostly right. This number is correct, but the real mistake is that I was calling it weight, when I should have called it mass. Normally, those two measurements are the same, in kilograms at least, but that's only when using Earth gravity. The other problem with saying that gravity in Minecraft is stronger is that gravity in Minecraft is dumb. Different things fall at different rates even without considering drag, and even then, sometimes drag works totally differently for some reason. If we ignore all that and go with the way gravity affects players and mobs, then after double checking the wiki's measurements, we get 0.08 meters per tick squared. To convert that to meters per second squared, we multiply it by 20 squared, for a gravity of 32 meters per second squared, or about 3.26 times Earth gravity, meaning that everything should weigh 3.26 times its mass in kilograms. Finally, user I'll Eat You Thrice mentioned that my formula assumed every layer of the water pyramid spread out the maximum 7 blocks on the ground below it, before that ground breaks and the next layer starts. But that can't happen on the bottom layer because there isn't any ground. Which is an amazing point. I didn't consider it, but they are 100% right. Good catch. So to correct the formula, now we have to subtract 2 from the height since we're separating the first and last layers, and since the last layer can't spread, it'll just have the full blocks, which are modeled by this part. So I'll just add a copy of that to the end. With the new formula, we can calculate that the true mass of the source block is a slightly different 2 quadrillion kilograms. If we then grab 37 of them and apply the difference in gravity, now we can say the weight of the water in a full inventory of buckets is 264 quadrillion, 299 trillion, 784 billion, 937 million, 890,653 kilograms. That is a big number, but it's still just the water in the buckets, and there's way more I could do. Almost every comment I saw was about ways that Steve could carry more weight. The reason I didn't do anything like that in the first video was because it wasn't really about the weight. It was about how much water fits in a bucket. But I did use Steve's carry weight as the hook, and I did use the words final maximum weight, which is wrong, so let's do it right. First, lots of people mentioned that I didn't consider the weight of the buckets. In Minecraft, a bucket is made of 3 iron ingots, which together make up 1/3 of a cubic meter of iron. The density of iron is 7,870 kilograms per cubic meter, so each bucket should have a mass of about 2,623 kilograms and a weight of 8,552 kilograms. When you add up the weight of all the buckets, a full inventory should weigh an entire 1/10,000,000,000th of a percent more. Huge oversight on my part to not include that. My apologies. Next up is ice. Every water source block can freeze into 1 ice block, meaning ice should weigh the same as a bucket of water, minus that super significant bucket weight. So ice blocks still have a mass of 2 quadrillion kilograms each, but now they're stackable, so Steve can hold 64 times as much as he could before. Converting all that to weight, through ice, Steve can carry 16 quintillion, 915 quadrillion, 186 trillion, 236 billion, 25 million, 1,800 kilograms. For scale, while the buckets weighed 7 times as much as Phobos, now we're lifting almost as much as Europa. Beyond ice, a few people wanted me to look at lava. Specifically lava in the Nether, where it spreads as fast and as far as water does in the overworld. And because it spreads the same, we can use the same volume, so that part's done. But what's more difficult is its density. Lava doesn't have a normal density, because lava isn't one material like water is, it's any molten rock. The most common range of lava density that I could find put it anywhere between 2,400 and 2,900 kilograms per cubic meter. But to figure out where in that range this lava is a little complicated, so hear me out. First, I compared how much water slows player movement versus how much lava does. I measured, and the wiki agrees, that lava slows player movement 2.5 times more than water does, making it 2.5 times more viscous than water. Density and viscosity are not directly related, and viscosity is pretty complicated, so just know that 2.5 times thicker than water is way lower than should be possible for lava. It's normally tens of thousands of times more viscous. How this relates back to density is that if we ignore the impossible part, a low viscosity means we're probably dealing with a silica-poor lava, which means a whole bunch of geology stuff, but mainly that it's probably on the higher side of our density range. After all that, now we can rerun our calculations from before, subbing out the density of water for 2,900 kilograms per cubic meter, making each lava source block have a mass of about 6 quadrillion kilograms. Add back in the buckets, multiply by 37 slots, and then by gravity, and we get a total weight of an inventory full of lava buckets being 20 quadrillion, 715 trillion, 388 billion, 549 million, 194,576 kilograms. Not as much as ice, but, as user Damn What Should I Call This pointed out, like water, a lava source block can also be cooled into something stackable, obsidian. That means, theoretically, each obsidian block should also have a mass of 6 quadrillion kilograms, or a weight of 20 quadrillion kilograms, and an inventory full of obsidian should weigh about 49 quintillion kilograms. As they also pointed out, 8 obsidian can be combined into an ender chest, and while the contents of the ender chest wouldn't count, since they're in some kind of pocket dimension, the chest itself is still pretty heavy, at least 8 times as much as obsidian. So, as the logical conclusion to the lava suggestion, an inventory full of ender chests would weigh 392 quintillion, 432 quadrillion, 320 trillion, 675 billion, 780 million, 41,770 kilograms, plus however much the eyes add. That one took, by far, the longest to research and calculate, and unfortunately, even after everything I had to learn about geology, water still beats lava, because the next suggestion is sponges. Sponges absorb water. Like, a lot of water. So hypothetically, the maximum mass of the sponge should be related to how much water it can hold. Before that, since I don't want another bucket situation, the estimates I see online for the density of sponge tissue hover around 200 kilograms per cubic meter. So when dry, each sponge block should weigh about 652 kilograms. Onto the water, a sponge block can absorb any water within this 7-block range, but can only absorb a maximum of 65 total source blocks. That means a single full sponge has 515 quadrillion kilograms of water weighing it down. Adding back in the weight of the sponge and filling our inventory with them, now we have 1 sextillion, 220 quintillion, 902 quadrillion, 859 trillion, 305 billion, 730 million, 958,173 kilograms. Now we're talking at the scale of things like the Kuiper Belt object Orcus. Also, in case you're wondering, since I keep mentioning big space rocks, I have been keeping track of both the gravity and the Schwarzschild radius of Steve's inventory throughout the whole thing, but so far neither of them have affected the math at all. Anyway, now we're at one of the most popular comments I got, blue ice. This one's pretty straightforward, so it should be quick. Even though each ice block weighs in at a tiny 8 quadrillion kilograms, we can craft 9 of them into a packed ice, and 9 of those into a blue ice. Therefore, this one block contains all the mass of 81 source blocks of water, making it weigh upwards of 642 quadrillion kilograms. Once again filling our inventory, now with the power of blue ice, Steve can carry around 1 sextillion, 521 quintillion, 432 quadrillion, 793 trillion, 904 billion, 64 million, 732,493 kilograms. Slightly more than the sponges. Next, the other most popular comment I got, Shuler Boxes. A lot of these I considered but didn't include, like I explained earlier, but originally I didn't count Shuler Boxes for the same reason I don't count ender chests. I assumed they worked on some kind of pocket dimension because they come from the end, and everything else that has to do with the end always involves some kind of weird spatial anomaly. But nothing ever really says that directly, and a lot of people wanted me to add them in, so that's good enough for me. As the bucket taught us, first we need the weight of the boxes. I don't know if there's any way to figure out how much mass shulker shells have, but the chest is 2 logs worth of wood, or at least 1,200 kilograms. So in Minecraft gravity, that means each shulker box should weigh at least 4,344 kilograms. After that, the shulker box basically just turns one inventory slot into 27 of them. So we take our highest weight so far, the blue ice one, multiply it by 27, add the weight of 37 shulker boxes, and now we have Steve carrying just under the weight of Pluto. But in the name of maximum nitpicking, before I say the final weight, let's throw him in some armor. As plenty of comments pointed out, when I said people say gold is the heaviest block in the game, netherite should be heavier, because it takes 4 gold ingots to make 1 netherite ingot. And that's true. I don't know if there's any way to figure out how much the scraps weigh, but even without them, a netherite block should have a mass of at least 78,000 kilograms, with each individual ingot having a mass around 8,666 kilograms. Each piece of netherite armor is made by coating a piece of diamond armor with 1 netherite ingot, which means they should all have the same mass as 1 netherite ingot plus 5, 8, 7, and 4 diamonds respectively, for about these numbers. But, while the netherite block is heavier than the gold block, most gold armor still takes it. That's because gold is a lot heavier than diamonds, so any piece of armor that takes more than 4 gold will be heavier than the same number of diamonds plus 1 netherite, meaning everything but the boots. Working all that out, gold armor has these masses, and our heaviest set looks like this. Adding a netherite trim to each piece slaps on an extra 8,700 kilograms of mass. And then, after gravity, we have our maximum armor weight of 282,531 kilograms. Which makes the real, final maximum weight that Steve can carry in survival Minecraft without modifying the game 41 sextillion, 78 quintillion, 685 quadrillion, 435 trillion, 409 billion, 748,220,572 kilograms. Which is a lot. There is one last comment I want to look at. In the same post where they brought up obsidian and ender chests, Damn What Should I Call This suggested putting it all in a boat, figuring out how fast Steve can row that boat, and then using that to figure out how hard he can punch. And that sounds awesome, so I'm gonna do that. Good idea, friend. Rowing and punching use some of the same muscles. Overall, the two are vaguely comparable at best, but it should still give us a reasonable estimate. Plus, I've made several dubious assumptions already, so what's one more? First of all, the boat weighs as much as 1.25 oak logs, or 2,715 kilograms. Second of all, you can put a chest in it, adding an additional 4,344 kilograms, and more importantly, adding 36 more slots to fill with blue ice shulkers, meaning the weight of the boat goes from the 41 sextillion kilograms that Steve is carrying to a total of 81 sextillion kilograms. Next, we need acceleration, this time in the form of thrust. According to the wiki, and again confirmed in-game, the thrust on a boat is 16 meters per second squared. Using Newton's second law, we can multiply that acceleration by the mass in kilograms to roughly get the force Steve is exerting on those oars as being 397 sextillion newtons. Cut it in half for the force exerted by just one arm, and if we say each row is about 1 meter, then we have Steve's punch exerting 198 sextillion, 888 quintillion, 677 quadrillion, 617 trillion, 970 billion, 663,776,556 joules. That means with every single punch, Steve is exerting the power of 47,000 gigatons of TNT, or about 3,000 times the estimated total yield of all nuclear arms on Earth. If you don't like comparing rowing to punching, Steve can still get an even bigger impact by staying in the boat, putting it on some blue ice, accelerating to max speed, and ramming into something like some kind of boat-based rail cannon. If we do that, we can calculate the kinetic energy with this equation using the same mass, but now with the maximum velocity of the boat, which is 73 meters per second when on blue ice. That gives the kinetic boat bombardment attack an energy output of 65 septillion, 748 sextillion, 372 quintillion, 490 quadrillion, 870 trillion, 370 billion, 208,583,530 joules. That's 15 million gigatons of TNT, or 150 times stronger than the Chicxulub impact that wiped out the dinosaurs. That is, as far as I can tell, the most Steve can lift, and the hardest he can hit, at least as far as finite numbers go. Plus, I think I covered all the major points people made last time. Except for the cows. I'm not sure where this cow meme came from, but if you really want to call cows infinitely heavy, they still float in water, so water's still heavier. Stay nice, everyone.